What is sequence fire? And how do you take advantage of that, especially with DMX? We'll go through that in this video. In a previous video, we went through the fireTEK CSV file format. ID is the module, rail is the 1 through 4 rails on the 48FX modules, channel is the queues, time is the firing time, sequence. We skipped this before. We're going to go through sequence here today. We have value and duration for the DMX effects. Position, module, and effects here, these are the custom columns allowed in the CSV file when you use the FT Control Android application. For right now, I have changed the titles to position, module, and effects. Now I'm showing right now on the screen sequence 13, 14, and 15. These are all fired with module 5, which I also have labeled as position 5, and these are the 48FX with DMX modules. And the effects here are a mix of flames and par lights. A sequence is a group of effects that fire on an independent timing sequence, and you can trigger them separately from the main script. In pyroignition control, they're referred to as groups. In the fireTEK script, they're referred to as sequences. So sequence 13, every 500 milliseconds, there is an effect. A value of 200 is given. That 200 is used for the flame projectors that I have, and it triggers those for half of a second. The very last two events on this sequence 13 are the par lights, which go for a couple seconds. Sequence 14 is also the par lights. And sequence 15 here, this fires all 4 flame machines given DMX channel 8, 10, 12, and 14. Remember, in the fireTEK CSV file format, when you're firing DMX, you need to start with 101 as channel 1. So we have channel 8, 10, 12, and 14 all fire at 0 seconds. Essentially fire as soon as you initiate that script. One of the nice things with sequence firing, especially with DMX, is I could trigger this over and over and over again. Now in this script, I actually have a number of other sequences. Sequence 0 essentially scrolls through at 1 second intervals a pyro effect on all of the 48E or 48FX modules for a total of 48 seconds. And it goes from module 1, rail 1, and then it'll go through all 12 queues, and it'll continue that on module 2, module 3, and module 4 at 1 second intervals. So we have a total of 48 seconds. That's the baseline script that will be running when we hit play. I also have other pyro sequences. Sequence 1 here is on module 1, and it's on rail 2, and it goes through queues 1 through 8. Sequence 2 is very similar. It's on module 2, and it goes through queues 1 through 8 on rail 2. Sequence 3, the only difference between sequence 3 and sequence 4 is that sequence 3 and 4 are at 200 millisecond intervals, where sequence 1 and 2 were at 100 millisecond intervals. I have sequence 7 here, which is a mix of pyro effects across all 4 modules. At 0 time, we get one pyro effect from all 4 modules, and then we get another one 500 milliseconds later. Sequence 8 is a mix of both pyro effects and DMX effects. We have right at 0 a pyro effect off of all 4 modules, 1, 2, 3, and 4. At 2 seconds, module 2 and module 3 fire a pyro effect, and at 3 seconds, module 1 and module 4. And then finally, we have in the mix here, at 1.5 seconds, the PAR lights start to strobe. And then that takes us to 13, 14, and 15 in our DMX sequences. So this is saved as a CSV file. This is 501 fireTEK multi-sequence version 02. Now in this demo, I'm actually going to save this on a USB drive, and with an OTC cable, I am going to load the scripts into my Android device and use the FT control application. However, for this video here, I will show you how to load this script with pyro ignition control. I'm going to start up pyro ignition control. First, I'm going to save this CSV file and close it. In pyro ignition control, we can't load the fireTEK CSV file format directly into pyro ignition control. And there's another video out there that goes through this in more detail. But what we can do is convert it first to a format that will load into pyro ignition control. So in the version 2.0 beta, which comes with the fireTEK system, if you go to Windows Ignition Systems, you get this window here. And this option here is to import the fireTEK file format. We'll select this. A window will pop up, and we want to select that file that we just saved, the CSV file, which was version 02. Now this window pops up again, but it is now saying Save As. It is now asking me to save this converted file into the pyro ignition control format. So it's going to put it into a pyro ignition control script type, and I'll hit Save. And a window will pop up that says Pyro Control Script Saved, and you select OK, and now you can close this file menu as well. Then you'll go to File, and now you will do a project import, because we are no longer loading a CSV file, we're going to load that new pyro ignition control file type. And that is a .zpl file. So here it is here that we just created. So we'll select that and hit open. It'll ask us for a start time. We'll just leave that as 0, and we'll hit OK. And now this is loaded into pyro ignition control. We have here group 0. In pyro ignition control, sequences are identified as groups. So here's our baseline script here. If we scroll down, then you start seeing the grouping. Group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see here where we start getting the DMX values, and it changes here from a flavor to DMX. And that's how you load a CSV file with sequences into pyro ignition control. Now from here you can load it into the modules just like you do normally. What I'm going to do now is save the CSV file onto a USB drive and use that to load it into the Android application. I've taken that script and I've loaded it into the Android device that I have with just a USB stick here, and the use of a OTC cable. Right now the script is loaded in here. the Android device is connected to the remote. And right now I've got all 5 modules set up. I've got module 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Module 5 being the one with the DMX. Up in front here, I've got 8 rails. The green cables are going to this bank of rails up here. These are all the rails that are connected to output 1 of each of the modules. That is our baseline script on sequence 0. The red cables here are rail 2, and they're going to this bank of rails here, and these are the ones that I have the different sequences set up on. I also have the 4 flame machines set up and 2 par lights for the DMX events. Now again, these flame machines are just laying on their side. We'll be able to see the spark go off. There's no fuel loaded into those. What we'll do here is we'll load the script from the FT control application connected to the remote. We'll load this up to all 5 of the modules. Now when you load this up, you need to be in test. If we were to go back one to add slaves, right, we don't have the option to load the script. We have to go into test, and then we can load the script upload, and hit OK. We've got 118 events there. It's loading them up. We can see on the remote here, it's showing us the events that are getting loaded in. So we have 118 events. We've got 5 modules. There are faults found, and that's because we don't have anything plugged into the rails. It's telling us to check our igniters if we go and check what those faults are. We have PRGK here. K is an indication that we have the script loaded both into the remote and into the module. We can go through all the different IDs here for the different modules. This is module 2, module 3, module 4, module 5. We'll go back to the remote screen here. Now, on the FT control application, we added those sequences here, and they show up when you filter between scripts and sequences. So here we have sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 13, 14, and 15. That's how you get to the sequences. We're going to go back to the script here. I also want to show that in the CSV file I created, I had the custom column set up for position, module, and effect. Right, so if we wanted to, we could filter out just the flame items here, and we see these are all the flame events here. It's a long hold to clear it. We could go to the module. I've got 2 48E modules, 2 48FX modules, and 1 48FX module with DMX. If we wanted to filter just between the DMX module, we could do that. Again, a long hold here clears that. We can also filter between Pyro and DMX events here. Here's the DMX events. There's the Pyro events. Again, a long hold clears it. We can also go from our sequences, filter our sequences out. I'm going to turn the lights off here so you can see the integrated LEDs on the rails. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to put this into ARM with a long hold. It goes into ARM. We'll see the modules are starting to flash as an indication. The integrated LEDs have stopped pulsing because it's no longer doing its continuity test. When we want to fire the sequences, we select the sequence and then hit play up here. Now nothing happens because we're still in armed. So we're going to go ahead and put this in play, and that will start sequence 0. And we'll see up on the top left there, the rails are pulsing through at 1 second the cues on those 4 rails. So the baseline sequence 0, or the baseline script, is now playing. Now, once we're in play, we can select the sequences here and play those as well. And that'll be on the center rails. So our first sequence here, which will be the 8 cues in succession there on that first rail. Sequence 2, when we're ready, we select that, we hit play, and it'll go through that sequence. Now we can fire multiple sequences at the same time. So we'll hit 3 and 4 and hit play. Now pyro sequences, once you've selected them, they don't play again. But let's go to 7, sequence 8, and that one had some DMX events in it with the par lights as well. Sequence 13, this will bring up our flame machines. Hit play. And then it has the lights hit at the end. Now, one of the nice things with the DMX here, with the sequences, is we could hit that again. I will do 14, which is par lights. And for 15 here, this will hit all 4 flame machines at the same time. All right, so the sequence 0, or the baseline script, went and played through. We're still in play, so we can still fire the sequences even though that baseline script has come to its end. One other thing I want to show here, and I'm gonna stop this. We'll go back into test. And what I want to show is that we can do this as well from the remote. So here in the remote, we'll go ahead and we'll put this in arm, long hold. Okay, it's ready to fire. So we can go ahead and hit the forward button again. Now it's telling us here that we've got 9 sequences. Sequence 0/9. Right? So to fire the sequences, what we want to do is first hit the rail button, and this brings up this here, sequence 0/9, and it says 0 plus LP. LP is for left press. So the sequence number you want is 0 plus whatever number you press here on the left side. So for sequence 1, for sequence 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. Okay. And then we also had sequence 13, 14, and 15. So now we press rail button 2, and on the screen here it says 12 plus LP. So if we want sequence 13, we hold down 2 here on the right side for 12 plus 1 is 13. Now, one of the reasons that I started my DMX scripts on 13 because it's real easy to remember that pyro events, sequence 1 through 12 and DMX events on 13 and on. So if we wanted to do 14, we would hold down 2 here, and it tells us 12 plus left press. So if we wanted 14, we have 12, 13, 14, and that gives us the par lights. If we wanted 15, we would do 12, 13, 14, 15, or 3 on the left button. And you can continue to hold down your right button and hit the left button over and over again to refire the DMX events. There you have it. There's a summary of how to create a sequence CSV file, how to convert it into a pyroignition control project. Also, we loaded that CSV file with the fireTEK format directly into the Android device with a USB stick. We loaded that into the FT Control app. We loaded the script through the Android app, and we were able to fire the sequences both through the FT Control app and through the remote. Now, one other thing I want to show is that I created another sequence. So first I'm going to erase the script here from everything. I'm going to load a slightly different script. We'll load this always through the ES File Explorer. And I'm going to load this version 3 that I created. I'm going to load this for all modules. Now, the only difference with the version 2 that we just ran and this version 3 is that version 3 does not have a baseline 0 sequence. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 13, 14, and 15. We don't have the baseline sequence. What I wanted to show is that you could still, without having to have a baseline script running, you could just run sequences. Okay, now with this version 3 loaded, we'll put it into ARM. Hit play. And what we can do now is, although we started play, there's no baseline sequence 0 script, so nothing is running, but we can fire the different sequences. So if you want to, you could have a sequence only script without having a baseline track or a baseline script running. All right. Well, there you have it. That was the last little thing I wanted to show on the sequences. I hope you found this useful. I'm really enjoying the fireTEK system, and I hope more people try it out.